As the Russo-Ukrainian war enters its 1173rd day, the complex geopolitical landscape continues to evolve with potential diplomatic overtures amidst ongoing hostilities. Recent developments indicate a possible shift in the dialogue between Ukraine and Russia, highlighted by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's willingness to engage directly with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Turkey. However, the Kremlin's ambiguous response to this overture raises questions about the sincerity of these negotiations and the prospects for peace. In a significant move, Zelensky expressed his readiness to meet Putin in Istanbul on Thursday, a potential first direct dialogue between the two nations since the early days of Russia's full-scale invasion in February 2022. This meeting could mark a critical juncture in the protracted conflict, which has resulted in tens of thousands of deaths and the displacement of millions. Zelensky's invitation for U.S. President Donald Trump to participate in these talks adds another layer of complexity to the diplomatic dynamics at play. Trump, who has positioned himself as a mediator seeking to broker peace, stated he is thinking about attending the talks if he believes they could yield positive results. His involvement could bring an unusual American perspective to the negotiations, underscoring the multifaceted international interest in resolving the conflict. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has also called for both sides to capitalize on this window of opportunity for a ceasefire and peace settlement. Despite these diplomatic gestures, the Kremlin has remained non-committal regarding Putin's attendance, with spokesperson Dmitry Peskov reiterating that Russia will not accept ultimatums from European leaders regarding a ceasefire. This statement came in response to Kyiv's proposal of a 30-day ceasefire, which Moscow effectively dismissed by launching drone attacks on eastern Ukraine, further escalating tensions in the region. Ukrainian officials have expressed skepticism about the possibility of a ceasefire, citing continuous Russian aggression along the front lines. The ongoing violence underscores the challenges that any potential talks face. Local residents, such as those in the eastern town of Bielitsk, remain doubtful about the likelihood of a ceasefire. Many have grown weary of the conflict, with one resident lamenting, "How long can it last? It's been 3 years already." This sentiment reflects a broader frustration among civilians who have endured the war's toll. The Kremlin's insistence on discussing the root causes of the conflict during potential negotiations reveals a stark divergence in narratives. Russia's framing of its military actions as necessary to address grievances related to Ukraine's alleged nationalist policies and NATO's eastward expansion stands in stark contrast to Kyiv and the West's view that Russia's invasion is an imperialistic land grab. The impasse on these fundamental issues complicates the prospect for meaningful dialogue. As international leaders, including those from the European Union, have welcomed the discussions while urging Russia to agree to a ceasefire, the potential for further sanctions looms if Moscow does not comply. Germany's warning that the clock is ticking for Russia to accept a ceasefire by the end of Monday highlights the urgency that many feel regarding the need for a de-escalation of hostilities. China, a key ally of Russia, has also called for a binding peace agreement that is acceptable to all parties, signaling its desire to play a role in fostering stability in the region. However, the effectiveness of such diplomatic efforts remains to be seen, as the conflict shows no signs of abating. In conclusion, while the prospect of direct talks between Ukraine and Russia in Turkey presents a glimmer of hope for peace, the complexities of the conflict and the entrenched positions of both sides pose significant obstacles. As the international community watches closely, the coming days will be pivotal in determining whether these diplomatic overtures can translate into a lasting resolution, or if the war will continue to drag on with devastating consequences for both nations and their people. In a significant escalation of hostilities, Ukraine has recently endured a wave of drone attacks attributed to Russian forces, which coincides with ongoing diplomatic efforts to negotiate a ceasefire. President Volodymyr Zelensky is reportedly awaiting a response from the Kremlin regarding his proposals for peace talks amidst a backdrop of heightened military activity that continues to threaten civilian lives and infrastructure. On May 12, 2025 A Russian drone strike targeted a vehicle in Sumy Oblast carrying power engineers, resulting in the tragic death of one individual and injuries to 3 others. Ola Hryhorov, the head of the Sumy Oblast military administration, confirmed the attack, stating, "An enemy UAV attacked a vehicle with power engineers on board in the Sumy Hromada. Early reports indicate that 1 person has been killed." This incident is just one of many in recent weeks, highlighting the persistent danger posed by unmanned aerial vehicles (UAVs) in the conflict. As the violence intensifies, the Kremlin has rejected Ukraine's ceasefire proposal, which has sparked fears of further escalations in the conflict. While Zelensky has shown a willingness to engage in dialogue, the lack of a constructive response from Russian officials raises concerns about the future of peace negotiations. Analysts suggest that the Kremlin's refusal to entertain talks could be a strategic move to gain leverage on the battlefield before any potential discussions. Meanwhile, the introduction of new electronic warfare systems by Russian forces such as the Cherniy Glaz Black Eye poses additional challenges for Ukrainian defense efforts. This system, which has been increasingly spotted on the front lines, disrupts the communication links between FPV drones and their operators, rendering them ineffective. Ukrainian experts emphasize the urgent need to adapt to this technology, recommending that drone operators alter their frequencies and mark the Cherniy Glaz systems as high-priority targets. The Cherniy Glaz system is notable not only for its technical capabilities but also for its rapid proliferation across the conflict zone. With a reported operational range of 4 kilometers, it has the potential to significantly diminish the effectiveness of Ukrainian aerial reconnaissance efforts. As Serhiy Flashbeskresnov, a noted electronic warfare expert, outlines, the main threat the Black Eye brings to the battlefield is the scale of mass production, manifesting in rapidly increasing sightings of this EW system on the front lines. The current situation underscores a broader trend in the conflict, where technological advancements are shaping military strategies and influencing the dynamics of warfare. With each drone attack, the stakes grow higher, forcing both sides to adapt their tactics in response to the evolving landscape of the battlefield. As Ukraine braces itself for potential further assaults, the international community watches closely, hoping for a breakthrough in negotiations that could pave the way for a cessation of hostilities. The coming days will be critical as Zelensky's administration continues to push for dialogue while simultaneously preparing for the harsh realities of ongoing conflict. In a world increasingly defined by geopolitical tensions, the recent events surrounding the ongoing conflict in Ukraine have highlighted the intricate dynamics between Russia, Ukraine, and their respective allies. As the war enters its 4th year, the landscape is shifting, with both military and diplomatic maneuvers taking center stage. This week, the spotlight turned to Moscow as President Vladimir Putin celebrated the 80th anniversary of the Soviet victory over Nazi Germany, a commemoration that served as both a rallying cry for national pride and a cover for the continuing struggles in Ukraine. The Victory Day celebrations, marked by parades and displays of military might, were intended to reinforce Putin's image as a steadfast leader in a time of war. However, beneath the surface of this spectacle lies a growing war fatigue among the Russian populace, with public support for the military campaign reportedly plummeting to just 30% according to recent polling from the Levada Center. The Kremlin's attempts to frame the conflict as a continuation of the heroic resistance against Nazi Germany have not resonated as strongly as intended, leading to a precarious situation for Putin. In a striking counter to the Kremlin's narrative, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky rejected a proposed 3-day ceasefire initiative from Putin, labeling it a mere political ploy. Instead, Zelensky extended an invitation to European leaders, including those from France, Germany, Poland, and the United Kingdom, to visit Kyiv and strengthen support for Ukraine's war efforts. The invitation underscores Ukraine's strategic pivot towards forging a united front with its Western allies, aimed at not only countering Russian aggression but also shaping the future of peace negotiations. A notable player in this unfolding drama is China, represented by President Xi Jinping, who attended the Victory Day celebrations in Moscow. The optics of Xi and Putin standing side by side suggested a partnership, yet the reality indicates a more complex relationship. while both leaders have praised their countries' ties. Diverging strategies toward the United States reveal underlying tensions. Xi's visit was not merely ceremonial, it emphasized China's interest in maintaining leverage over Russia, particularly as the latter seeks economic and military support amid international sanctions. As Putin grapples with the reality of dwindling support and the potential for prolonged conflict, his overtures towards the West, especially concerning arms control discussions, may indicate a shift in strategy. However, Xi's influence complicates these dynamics. The Chinese president's insistence on a balanced approach to peace in Ukraine suggests that any resolution must not align solely with U.S. interests, further complicating an already intricate negotiation landscape. Putin's reliance on military displays and nationalistic rhetoric may serve to unify his base temporarily, but the long-term sustainability of this approach remains in question. As the war drags on with Ukrainian forces poised to regroup and resupply, the potential for a ceasefire, or even a lasting peace, hangs in the balance. Analysts suggest that unless Putin can navigate the evolving pressures from both domestic and international fronts, he risks further isolation and a potential backlash from a populace weary of conflict. In conclusion, the next steps in this ongoing saga will be crucial. As negotiations are set to take place in Istanbul, the outcomes will not only shape the future of Ukraine and Russia but will also impact global geopolitical alignments. The interplay between military action and diplomatic dialogue will likely determine whether peace can be achieved or if the conflict will continue to escalate, driven by the intricate relationships among the key players involved. The world watches closely as the stakes have never been higher. In a significant diplomatic development, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan have initiated discussions aimed at reviving peace talks between Ukraine and Russia. Erdogan has proposed hosting these negotiations in Istanbul, a gesture welcomed by Zelensky, who has expressed a desire for U.S. President Donald Trump to join the discussions. This proposed meeting, set for Thursday, marks a potential turning point, as it would be the first direct engagement between Ukrainian and Russian officials since the early months of Russia's invasion in 2022. Zelensky's call for Trump's involvement highlights the intricate web of international dynamics at play. It would be beneficial to have the U.S. represented at the talks, he stated, underscoring the United States' pivotal role in the ongoing conflict. Trump himself has indicated a willingness to attend the talks, contingent upon his schedule during a trip to the Middle East. "If I think things can happen, I might fly over," he told reporters, reflecting an openness to participate in what could be a critical moment for peace efforts. Meanwhile, Erdogan has urged all parties to leverage the recent diplomatic momentum, stating a new window of opportunity has opened with the recent contacts. "We hope that this opportunity will not be wasted." His comments come after a series of high-profile meetings among European leaders, including French President Emmanuel Macron and British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, who convened with Zelensky in Kiev over the weekend to advocate for a ceasefire. However, the road to peace remains fraught with challenges. The Kremlin has not yet confirmed whether Russian President Vladimir Putin will participate in the Istanbul talks, and has criticized the European Union's proposals for a 30-day ceasefire as unacceptable. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov emphasized that ultimatums would not be effective in negotiations with Russia, leading to further skepticism about the upcoming talks. Compounding the situation, Russia has ramped up military actions, including drone strikes against Ukraine, which injured civilians and targeted critical infrastructure. In a recent attack, Ukraine reported that over 100 drones were launched by Russia overnight, a stark reminder of the ongoing violence that underscores the urgency for a ceasefire. European leaders are preparing for the possibility of further sanctions against Russia should it refuse to agree to a ceasefire. German officials have made it clear that failure to accept the ceasefire offer would lead to new sanctions. "The clock is ticking," remarked a government spokesperson, noting the pressing need for compliance by the end of the day. In a parallel diplomatic effort, Zelensky held a poignant conversation with Pope Leo XIV, marking their first discussion since the Pope's recent election. Zelensky expressed gratitude for the Vatican's support and discussed the plight of Ukrainian children abducted by Russian forces. He extended an invitation for the Pope to visit Ukraine, hoping such a gesture would bring hope to the beleaguered nation. As these discussions unfold, the international community watches closely, recognizing that any breakthrough in dialogue could potentially pave the way for a resolution to the protracted conflict. The upcoming talks in Istanbul may indeed represent a critical juncture, one where the aspirations for peace can either be realized or further deferred. As the situation develops, all eyes will remain on the diplomatic maneuvers and military actions that will shape the future of Ukraine and its relationship with Russia.